Welcome everyone to the Wash Exchange, where real stories equal real results. Well, today we've got a real treat. We've got Mr. Paul Fazio, who's taken the time of day out to speak to us today. Welcome to the Wash Exchange, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. Now, you've made Wash Exchange history because you're based in Florida. We're in Brisbane, so at the moment it's 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning and it's about 4 p.m. on a Monday. We're about 15,000 or 10,000 miles apart, so you've made the longest distance to be here, and we welcome you to it today. We're going to rip straight into it. So the Fazio family, synonymous with car washing. I mean, if you've been in the car wash industry and you don't know the Fazio name, you've been living under a rock. So one thing I wanted to touch on, Paul, is the Fazio name in car washing. Where did it start? And one thing people probably don't understand is where the name Sonny's came from.
Started in 1949. So Dad did his first car wash just outside of Boston, Massachusetts in 1949. And he stayed in that end of the business until around 1973. So in 73, when he retired, he was at home for a couple of years, and he had an option. He had to either decide to do something or have my mom throw him out of the house because having him home all the time after working 7 days a week, it got ugly. So he decided to start a small parts company. And actually, Blair, the original name of the company was SF Inc., his initials. And after a couple of years of him realizing that people didn't recognize that as him, he changed it to Sonny's. So yes, the name is actually my dad's name.
Right, yes. So that was, did you say 1949? You
Started
it?
in 49 and he opened Sonny's in 78.
Right. And in 1949, he started the first car wash. Was that how he started?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that, Paul.
So he was working in his mom's dress factory, pressing dresses. And he was dating a woman that later became my mom.
Wow.
And he was telling her and some of their friends that he really was intrigued with this whole car wash thing. And then one day, his soon-to-be sister-in-law walked in with a Time magazine, September 22, 1947 issue, that had an article in there about this car wash machine. That was it. When he saw there was a machine out there, he gathered some friends and family, raised some money, and decided he was going in the car wash business.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was, because that's an iconic story. And I remember going to your factory with you there many years ago. And correct me if my memory's wrong, but that article is still on the wall today.
A client of ours heard the story, went out and actually got me a copy of that magazine.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. And so the car wash, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, that was in Boston. Is that right?
Just outside of Boston and Lynn.
Yeah. And what sort of car wash equipment was it back then? It would have been pretty agricultural.
Very rudimentary. In fact, a lot of it was still done by hand.
Yeah. Okay. So it was a full service wash.
Yes.
So 1949 starts a car wash. I mean, it's a long time ago now. Did you have to educate did he have to educate the market? Was car washing mainstream, or was it?
Anything but mainstream.
Yeah,
He thought, since he was a car fanatic, that everyone was a car fanatic. And that,
sure.
let me say this, dear Blair, the first couple of years were less than beautiful. It was ugly. I mean, there were many months he had trouble making payroll.
Yep,
It was a real struggle. And then a
yep.
couple of years later, he moved to another location in Lynn. It was a better location. So his initial site, he had actually taken a nightclub and turned it into a car wash. The second location is actually still an operating car wash today and still in the family. We don't run the car wash. They lease it out, but it's still a going concern as a car wash. An
Wow.
iconic site on the Linway in Lynn, Massachusetts.
Right. Well, that is cool. And what's the name of that car wash, Paul, for people that might?
Today, it's a sparkling image location.
Sparkling Image. Okay, sure. So fast forward, from the early days of Sonny's, and it's really important that we got the name there. And I did have the luxury or the privilege of meeting your dad on a couple of occasions before he passed away. He always gave the people the time of day like you have today. But one thing I find intriguing is yourself. Obviously, you're born into the car wash game, I presume, as a kid.
Yeah.
Um, as I was, I mean, my first job was 14 as a driver for my dad's car wash. And the reason I was And he loved it because I'd do it on a school holiday and always the profits would go up. It wasn't because I was any good. It was that people weren't stealing because they knew the owners. Did you have a story similar to that?
That's more my brother's story. I
Right.
mean, on a Good Friday or Saturday or Friday, he would say to my brother, "Don't tell mom, I don't want you to go to school today. I need you to drive on."
Yeah.
Whereas I was the opposite. Blair, I hated the business. I
Sure.
swore I would never do this. My brother as a little boy would take the kitchen chairs, line them up and pretend he had a car wash line and he was washing cars.
Right.
He always wanted to do this.
Sure. And so you didn't want to be part of the car wash industry. So you finished school. We fast forward.
No, I
You
quit.
didn't finish school.
No, it was 1979, and my brother is 9 years older than me. He was already in the car wash and gas business, and he had gone through the gas shortage of 73. So the gas shortage of 79, he calls me up, and I'm about, I don't know, 2 months away from finishing college. And he says, listen, there's a real opportunity. You got to come up to Boston because I was going to school in Florida. There's this little gas station. And I'm telling you, you can make money with this. This is, it's time to get into the real world, Paul. Forget the school thing. Get up here. I got something that can be really interesting for you. And I hang up the phone with him and I think, I'm this close to finishing. If I ever left now, I figure my dad would kill me. He paid for all this. The next phone call is my father. And he says, you packing? I said, what? He said, your brother called me. Get in the car and go. And I'm thinking, you don't want me to get in the car, Paul. This is real. You can always go back to school. Go. And the next thing I know, I'm packing the car up and driving to Boston.
Probably the greatest decision of your life.
I knew, it was funny, Blair. The call came at a good time. I was finishing school with a degree in accounting, had already been accepted to law school, and I realized I didn't want to be an accountant or a lawyer. So I was kind of lost. And this
Yeah.
phone call came and saved me.
So that's great. So you owe a lot to your brother and obviously
Yes.
your father. So tell me, I did a little bit of research on here. So you start in the business. There's a story going around, and when I found this story, I didn't look past the headlines. I wanted to hear it from yourself. There's a story going around about gas pumps and a Polaroid camera.
So this phone call from my brother, he had found this tiny little gas station site in a little town called Malden, Massachusetts. And when I tell you small, I'm talking about one island with what looked like a phone booth in the middle of it. And originally it had one gas pump on either end of this island. Well, when I got up there were just holes in the ground where the pumps used to be. And back in 79, the Department of Energy was still in charge of giving out allocations for gasoline. So I called them up and I said, I'm going to open up this little gas station and I need an allocation. And they said, well, we can't give you any gas until we see that it's an operating car wash. Well, it used to be a Texaco station. So I called Texaco and said, I need pumps so I can open the station up. And Texaco said, we're not going to give you pumps. So you get an allocation from the Department of Energy. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do now? I'm going to catch 22. So I tell my dad the story. He says, go tomorrow and get a Polaroid camera and be at that station at 1:00. And I said, Dad, he said, just do what I'm telling you. So I get the camera the next day at 1:00, 2 pickup trucks pull up. They put a broken pump over one hole, a broken pump over the other hole. We take the hoses and put them in the truck like we're filling them up. I stand back, take a picture. I take that to the Department of Energy and go, look, I got my pumps. They give me my allocation. I go to Texaco and go, look, I got my allocation. They give me the pumps.
Perfect.
My father he says, 4 years of school, did they teach you anything?
Yeah, well, that is a good story because one thing about school, they don't treat you street smart.
And of course, to my father, that was just a common sense thing to do. And me, I was that as a young kid, I was lost.
Yeah. So then we just go back. So you're in the business. Your dad's got car washes and the supply company, which is now called Sonny's. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about
So at
Sonny's.
the end of 79, Blair, and the gas shortage ended, in that year, I got to know my brother. Being 9 years older than me, when he left, I was a little kid. And of course, he had car washes. So when I wasn't at the gas station, I was helping him and started to learn the business. And I caught the bug. So I said to my brother, look, I want to go in the business. He said, are you serious? I said, yeah, but I don't want to live up here. I want to go back to Florida. we call my dad and we tell him, and his first reaction was he wanted to kill me because I could have been learning the business that whole time as a kid. But he
Sure.
said, "You're not gonna believe this. I know of a site that we should call." And sure enough, he makes a deal in 5 minutes. And next thing I know, I'm driving back to Florida and opening up my first car wash.
And what was that car wash called, Paul?
That it was a Sonny. So
Oh, I see.
my brother and I named all the car washes after my dad.
Yeah, that's cool. So in the peak back then, how many car washes did you
And
guys have
in
as
this particular one,
a
it was
family?
it was an old rundown site.
Yep.
And under my dad's leadership, I mean, when I tell you, he taught me the business. For first day, he says, "Okay, we're going to close this thing down and redo it. I need you to go get the biggest jackhammer you can find, a concrete cutter, and a blowtorch." And I don't know what he's talking about. I've never,
Sure.
I've never seen
Yeah.
any of these things. And he gets out a piece of chalk, starts marking up the floor, no tape measure. And he says, "Okay, use the saw, cut this, then jack it all out, and then get the conveyor and you cut all the stuff and get the." I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, I'll be back next week. It better be done." And the upside of that was, I mean, when I tell you he taught me the business, I built that location, everything except the electrical, from underground to everything. And that's really how I learned the business.
And that would have been a full service back then?
Back then, it was totally full service.
Everything was full service?
Yeah.
Yep. So in the peak of this family dynamic of car washes, how many car washes did you guys have?
13.
13. And was that from sort of Massachusetts all the way down to Florida?
Yes, had a handful in Massachusetts. Then we did buy a couple in Orlando, which is about a 3-hour drive north of where I was.
Sure.
And then I had my little grouping in the Fort Lauderdale.
Good. And then so we've got the car wash empire already started. And then my understanding is that you sold to your brother to start get into the equipment game. Is that correct?
So Dad would cook every Sunday. So every Sunday I'd go over to his house, and while everyone else was eating, I had bought a a compact portable computer, which at the time was the size of a bread box.
Sure.
And I started doing his marketing. And because I saw the potential of his company, he just really wanted something to keep himself busy. And as I started developing more of his marketing, it really started to take off.
Yep.
Yeah, I did his first catalog for him in 1988. That tripled the business overnight.
Yep. And for me, that catalog is iconic. I mean, it looks like an old phone book now. How big was it back then?
It was about 80 pages.
Wow.
Yeah,
And then at its peak, probably 600 or 700.
at least.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I remember always wanting to get in that catalog, and we finally got in there with our SlipStream product. So for us, it was an achievement.
Yeah.
And then with the catalog and the business, then the supply business, were you doing trade shows? Like, is it like what it is today?
It wasn't as big as, we started with a 10
Sure.
by 10 booth. But
Yep.
yeah, we absolutely would go. In fact, a lot of times he'd send me. I'd pack up his van. I would drive to wherever it was. I'd set it all up, and then he would join me. So although I was still technically my brother's partner and really not any part of Dad's business, I was helping him on the marketing side until about 1991 when we did his second catalog. And that was the thing that broke it apart. But when I did the second catalog, the business had another big surge, and he was livid. He said,
Yep.
now you've taken it to where it's no longer fun for me. It's a business. And now I'm going to need help. And that's when I went to my brother and said, "Hey, look, I'm really liking this side of the business. I think I'm going to buy Dad's company." And so we parted in 91.
That's
And
when
I
it all
mean,
started for
yeah,
you on the supply.
it was time.
And did you have reservations at that time, Paul?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
We had taken this little thing and built it out to 13 phenomenal locations and 13, great pieces of property. And of course, my wife and I were in the early stages of our marriage, and I kept telling her, what we're building, what we're building, what we're building. And I come home one day and said, "I'm leaving. I'm going to start over." So yeah, a lot of reservations. At the
Sure.
time, Dad's company was very small, so I was taking a huge step backwards.
Yep. And So you've bought your dad out essentially, and what was the hardest year? What sort of went wrong in
Oh,
those early days? Anything major?
I think the biggest thing, I went through a lot of iterations, a lot of ups and downs. I think the biggest hurdle came in 2008 when we had, the economy crashed. And thankfully, dad taught me the old fashioned way of doing things where I had no debt. Every dime I had was going back in the business. In fact, I kid about it and say my wife used to look at our tax return and say, I'd like to meet that guy someday because we were broke. you know, you grow in the business, your receivables are up, your inventory is up, and you got to pay Uncle Sam. So there was no cash left. Now we
Sure.
kept growing and we were doing well, but she was right. We were broke. Well,
Yep.
the upside of that in 2008 was since I didn't have debt, I could adjust to the market size.
Yep.
And through those 2008, 2009, 2010, I was the only one in the building that took a pay cut. You know,
Yep.
I was able to keep everyone going and, make it through. And I did see what I thought was going to take us to the next level happening in those years, Blair. I actually started retooling my company in 9 and 10. So as we came out of this in 11 and 12, I was really positioned for what I believed was going to happen next.
Yeah, I remember. I think I came and saw you around 2012, and there was might have been a bit after that, and you had robots in the factory. First time I've ever seen a welding robot. I mean, that would have been cutting edge technology back then, I'm sure.
Right.
And that 2008 credit crunch, what did the market look like? Did it drop sort of 30 or 40% in pipeline sales, or
Easily.
wow, so a
Yeah.
big drop. Yep.
And I had seen a drop before, in my tenure. And I think that's what was helpful for me. This wasn't the first time I saw a setback. So I knew how to handle it. Whereas I'm watching, some of what I've seen recently with some of these young kids that have been in business for the last, 10, 12, 15 years, they never saw a downturn. They didn't know
Yeah.
how to react to a downturn,
Yep. I'm seeing it
whereas
now.
right? So when you've been kicked a little bit, you knew how to handle it.
Yeah, correct. And what about in the business overall, and you may not want to answer this and you don't have to, but what was your biggest year in terms of volume of tunnels or equipment sold? Like
Without a doubt, 2023.
23. Yeah.
And I would tell you, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would guess it was somewhere between 475 and 500.
Wow. 10 a week.
Yes. I was estimating we had probably 60% of the new builds. Okay.
That's
My
crazy.
clientele was blowing and going.
Yep.
And I saw the build up 21, 22, 23 by far was the biggest year.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
10 a
I
week,
think the year probably between 850 and 900 tunnels were built. And we got, like I said, somewhere around 480, 490.
50, 60%. Yeah. And what was the employee count like? Would have been huge.
At that point, about 2,100.
Wow. Yeah. You look back and you think your dad, Sonny, and what would have he thought seeing that?
He was lucky in that when he passed in 13, we were the largest manufacturer of conveyorized equipment in the world. And that's
Okay.
before we went with PE.
Yep.
So he had seen my vision come into life. He'd seen that we had made it to those levels. And of course, he was flabbergasted, which, by the way, so was I.
Yeah.
Each year was things that we were doing things that um, we got to points where I had never envisioned that kind of growth, that kind of, acceleration. But he did get to see that before he passed, which I thought was great. And
That
of
is
course,
great.
screaming at me all the time. And I agreed with him. It was never about being the biggest. It was always about being the best. From where we came from, giving back and taking our clients to the next level. And he used to tell me
Sure.
all the time, if you do the right thing every day, the rest will take care of itself. Boy, was he right.
Yep. Well, speaking of that, that leads into a really good thing I want to talk about. So you bring PE into the company, but you've got this culture that your dad's put into you. Doing the right thing, blah blah blah. All the stuff that's great. I mean, I know you had a long-standing set of employees that have been there a long time. PE comes in. Did you have reservations about the culture changing or the business changing to that extent?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very nervous because I've seen a lot of these deals go sideways.
Yep.
But I saw where I thought the industry was going, and I saw how the changes were taking place, and I knew that if I had some financial backing, I could build something to serve them even better. And that was my goal. And because if you watched what happened, Blair, is I had my core clients who were families that I had dealt with for literally decades,
Sure.
generations.
Yep.
But now you had this outside money coming in, and most of these guys were more investor than operator. And
Yeah.
I could see that they really could have benefited even more from. I built the school. Um, I thought if I could be a one-stop shop, my older clients would pick and choose. I want even when it came to chemistry, I want this drying agent from this guy, this tire product from this guy, even equipment. They didn't buy the whole thing from one guy. These guys didn't know how to make those decisions, didn't want to make those decisions. And I thought, okay, if I can really become a one-stop shop with the right service, the right education, the right products, this could get really interesting.
Yep. And
And it
that
will
it did.
benefit other clients because they were starting to accelerate their growth too. And they decided to realize, you know what, if you can, Paul, if you can really give us a package that's best of breed, we're in.
Yep. And that's what's happened.
And that's what I did.
Terrific. Yeah. So with your family, it's quite funny. I was down in Pennsylvania about 2 years ago, and I'm at this car wash location, a big chain, and I hear this name, someone talking about a Fazio. I'm like, Paul Fazio. And they're like, no, someone else. I think it was your nephew. Um, so have you got your kids or other family members in the business still today?
So my brother's son and my brother are on the car wash side, still the retail side. And then in my company, I had my son and my son-in-law.
Great.
Yeah.
And that your company now is car washes still?
I don't have any more car washes involved with Sonny's. I did have my one site that I use more of as a test site.
Yep.
It was, it was, it was phenomenally successful, but we also used it as a test site.
I remember going to that site. Is, is that quite close to the factory back in the day? Is that in
It,
Tanamura?
it wasn't. I used a client of mine also to do some testing. Yeah,
That's
mine
fine.
was about 50 miles away.
Okay, sure. So then, you've built this huge, the world's largest car wash company in the world, over a spanning 30, 40 years. 2025 comes around and you retire. So, well, I think it was 25, correct me if I'm wrong, but
You're right.
how was that decision? Like, how do you feel retired now? I mean, you're a pretty energetic guy even today. And when I asked you to come on here, you jumped on. It's been great having you on here, Paul. But what does a normal day look like for you now, and what was the retirement like?
It's um it's been a culture shock. It's in my wife
Yeah.
hasn't thrown me out yet. It's been close. But I remember the first week or so when I said to her, "So what are we gonna do for lunch today?" She said, "We? We haven't had lunch in 44 years. Now we're gonna have lunch." You know? So
Sure.
it was quite the change. And
Yeah.
truthfully, I'm still adapting to it. It's easier for me right now, as I was telling you as we were getting on, that I'm away. I'm in New Hampshire right now. And I have a son up here, so I'm spending time with him and I'm really enjoying that. Whereas
Terrific.
when I'm home, Blair, it's tougher on me where the muscle memory, I'm used to getting up, going to work. So I've started working out, taking better care of myself, but I'm still having days when, yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do?
No doubt. No doubt. And what about, the industry? Listening to you today, it's quite good because you've obviously come from a very successful operator where you could probably look at, you talked about marketing with your dad and building Sonny's to where it is today. You've watched the industry go from mum and dad car washes into consolidation, private equity. Did you underestimate where the industry was going to go?
I saw it was going. I underestimated the acceleration.
I think we all did,
I
Paul.
saw What I saw happen from like 18 to 23 even took me by surprise.
Yep. Yeah.
It was just a free for all. And
Yeah,
you mentioned all those different pieces, right? The mom and pop, and it wasn't then that it's now all of the above. They're
sure.
all still involved. We still have mom and pop. We still have single operators coming into the business, and of course, we still have private equity building, doing more consolidation. And as I look at it, I firmly believe there's room for all of it, um, because it's not even as I was saying about Sonny's. My goal was never to be the biggest; it was to be the best. As some of these companies get bigger, they lose sight of the day to day operations. Whereas you take these smaller operators, I think what I see in a lot of markets is it's the smaller guys that can take control of a market because they're there every day and they're paying attention.
Yep.
It's still about clean, dry, shiny, fast. It's not about size.
Yep. I
So
agree.
there's still room for everybody.
I always say to everyone, when they come into the industry, you never go to a dirty restaurant. So you never go to a dirty car wash. And the mum and pa operations are always the cleanest. Well, they should be.
They should be.
Yep.
We have
So,
some good large operators, but it's tough.
yeah.
So, and I still will tell you because it's still when I travel, I'm constantly asking people, where do you wash a car? It makes my wife crazy. I'll reach to the next table. Excuse me.
Well,
Hey,
whenever I hop in an Uber, that's the first question I ask them. So when you travel around there on, in retirement mode, do you still go and wash a car just to see what the car wash is like?
is that a serious question?
I knew the answer.
What else would I do?
That's
It
right.
was funny, as I was getting ready, Blair, I grabbed a glass of water and I'm realizing I think 90% of the things I have in my life have a car wash logo on them.
Well, I have to send you some SlipStream stubby coolers or beer coolers. So when you're drinking a beer, you can think of the great people in Australia.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
the Unlimited Wash Club, I mean, it revolutionized car washing essentially. What do you think of it, where it's gone and where it's going to go to?
Certainly changed things, didn't it? I mean, especially when we were in the full service business, when I tell you tied to the weather. And,
Yep.
back then, if you were doing well, 42% of your labor was going, of your revenue was going to labor. Our
Yep.
labor pool was huge. And the weather, of course, had a huge impact on what you were doing. Uh, Now, with the unlimiteds today, it certainly has leveled things out and made it so that it's much easier to um, plan and understand what your revenue is going to be. Um, I think that's not only changed where the industry is and where it's going. My thing is, what's next? As you see these things, and you see AI coming in too, is what other tools are we going to gain in the next 5, 10, 15 years that are going to be as, hopefully, as drastic for us as Unlimited was? It'll continue to help us evolve and change how we're doing things.
Do you think robots will become a mainstream item in the car wash?
Me personally,
Yeah.
it's not where I'm leaning.
No.
But then again, I got to tell you, and I realize this, and it's one of the reasons why I'm just sitting today, is I'm old fashioned.
Yeah.
It was, and I at least I can recognize that in myself, and I made sure I surrounded myself before I retired with people that were younger and thinking about tomorrow. I look at it and I still think that there'll be tweaks to what we're doing, but I don't see it going to the total robots.
No.
Will they help us? Absolutely. Will it be just robots? I don't see it.
Yeah, sure. And what about your father now? If he walked in, come back here and saw what's happened in the industry, since 1949, would he be like, was it happening before he passed away? Like, the memberships and the growth and
And there were areas that infuriated him.
yeah,
You know, you and I in the business, one of the things we would do, of course, for our clients or with our clients, preventative maintenance. When I heard the term deferred maintenance, what?
yeah,
It was things like that he would look at them and go, I don't care how much money your fund has. And he had to know my dad. Are you an idiot? And he would
yeah,
just call them out. You know, you do, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. It's all about clean, dry, and shiny. And like you said, your site better be clean enough to eat off the floor. My factory floor had to be clean enough to eat off the floor. My dad would have killed me.
Yeah, and then
So
it
this
was
is
too.
okay. So when he started seeing these other things happen from these guys, he would take these multi-millionaires and call them out
Yeah,
and say, I don't know how you got your money because you're the stupidest guy I've ever met. I said, Dad, you can't say that. And he pushed me aside. I can say whatever I want to say. He would say, this is my industry.
yep.
And
This is
this guy is screwing it up.
yep,
And I'd have to call on my brother. Dad's at it again.
well, he's
But
right, though. I mean,
he was absolutely right, Blair.
yeah. I mean,
Absolutely
deferred
right.
maintenance is the most
Well, what do you deferred maintenance? You want to kill the guy.
yeah,
Well,
yep,
the preventive maintenance, you can't have downtime. And
yeah,
if something does break, you stay all night until it's fixed.
correct. Yep. The, it's interesting, the bad operators, normally their downtime occurs on a Saturday or a
Uh,
Sunday, game
uh,
day.
of
Yep.
course,
They see
and they'll
the
do what you're preparing for.
they see the issue on a Wednesday, just, "It'll be okay, it'll be okay." No, it's not.
The the sense of urgency to get those things fixed was another one of those learning lessons I had with my dad. I tell you, he was not easy. I
Yep.
wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
I would never have
100%.
had the success I had if I didn't have someone like him behind.
Yeah. It was interesting, you talked earlier about your first car wash down in Florida where you got the chalk out and, he obviously understood the mechanics of a car wash and what it should look like. I sort of resonate that. I've watched the McDonald's movie, The Founder, and that's how they did it with, I don't know if you've seen that movie, but
No,
the two brothers, they mapped everything out with the chalk and knew how it was because they understood the business like your dad did back then. So
man, those
Paul,
lessons are valuable. And I
yeah,
will tell you, that's what gave me the success at Sonny's. In dealing with others, when I was an owner operator, and then having him teach me, I knew in my mind what a supplier should look like.
yeah,
I knew the frustrations I had as an owner operator, and I was dead set on fixing that.
yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure everyone listening today would agree you successfully did that, and congratulations to you and your family for that, and the impact you've had on the industry. I mean, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I always like the guest to have the sort of like the last say, and I'll just let you say whatever you want to say today as we finish up, Paul.
You say that. I never saw myself the way you described me or what you sent me when you asked me to do this until after I left and I started getting phone calls. I guess when you're in it day to day, you don't realize the effect you're having on others.
Sure.
But I will tell you that through retirement and the phone calls that I've got and the relationships that I still have to this day, are much more meaningful than anything else I ever built. I mean, I look at it, it makes me proud in that as these families still call me and tell me what I did for their families,
Yeah.
both of my internal, the team I worked with, or my clients, or my vendors that I took with me on that ride for the 30 some odd years. I think that's what I'm the most proud of. And when I get a call from someone like you, why I can laugh and say, sure, I'll do this because I know it's going to be fun. It's not going to be someone tapping me on the shoulder saying, you messed with me. No, I didn't do that. Hopefully I took
Yeah.
your family to a new level.
Yep. Well, you did with us too, Paul. You're a good supporter of us, and I do appreciate that. And it was interesting because when I reached out to you, that's one of the things you wrote back. Let's just make this thing fun. And I think today, hopefully, we have had a bit of fun. I mean, it's been a pretty relaxed conversation. We've covered a lot, and I do appreciate your time, Paul. Thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure.
Yep. So we'll catch up soon, and who knows if you're unlucky enough, we'll get you back on here and put you through some more pain.
Well, since my wife's still talking to me and you were right about the time, I'm going to see if she'll go to dinner with me.
Okay, terrific. Well, have a great dinner, Paul, and have a great evening. And I've just got to go to work now, so I'm sure your next 12 hours is going to be better than mine.
Thanks, Blair.
Thank you.